Welcome back to the lab. I'm your host, Bryce Prescott. I'm excited for today's episode because it's based off of some experiences I just recently had. I really think this is going to matter to you as you listen to this, because at the end of this, we're going to have some resolution to some challenges that we face as entrepreneurs, as people, as men, as women. It's crazy. Today, we're going to be diving into a part of human behavior that is everywhere right now. And to be frank, it's destroying actual, genuine leadership. It destroys connection. It can ruin friendships, clarity, the whole thing. And what I'm talking about specifically is ego, and how specifically ego hijacks your credibility, how it masquerades as confidence, and how ego turns people into performers instead of being a teacher or a thinker or a leader. It screws things up for you. But your ego is also a necessary part of confidence, and there's a whole blend of spectrum of what and why your ego is what it is, how it sabotages and how it serves. But I wanted to start by talking about something that I saw recently that it perfectly illustrates the problem. So I'm going to be very careful about what I describe here, because I don't want to put anybody specifically on blast. I just want to talk about a specific experience. So recently I was on Instagram, and there was this influencer to which I'm associated with. And this person was doing one of those questions where an AMA, ask me anything. And the questions were all over the place. And it was a pretty interesting experience and very informative about what he was talking about. And one of the things that he kind of dived into is he started receiving some questions about real estate. And this, now, mind you, this person has a big audience. There's a lot of engagement, and people were asking real questions. And then he was answering them in his stories, the questions. You guys know how an AMA works. So he was quite simply, he was positioning himself, rightfully so, as an expert in these things because he had the track record and history to be an expert. And for the most part, this scenario was great. He would be asked a question, he would respond. It was awesome. Well, in one of the things that he was talking about specific for real estate, there was a term that he used that apparently somebody that was watching didn't understand. And so this person DM'd him for clarification and said, "Hey, I don't know what this means." So up to that point, this entire experience was this person had positioned himself as the expert. Questions were being posed. He was responding to them in kind and kindly, and it worked. But then this person DM'd him with what I saw to be a reasonable question. And instead of simply answering it like he had done all of the other questions, or ignoring it even, say thanks, whatever, this person, he took a screenshot of this DM and then put it on his stories and then went on blast for 3 slides about being resourceful and how, look how long it took me to go to Google and figure this out, and putting this person on blast that had asked publicly or in this DMs what this term meant. He labeled this person as unresourceful, mocked him, told him that he shouldn't be asking those type of questions and to go look it up. Now, this is the part that I'm going to be real. It fucking pissed me off and it blew my mind, because the person that was asking the question was asking a reasonable question, and he was asking it to a person that has positioned himself as somebody resourceful to answer questions in whatever way you were going to ask. It was an ask me anything. People were literally learning in real time from him as he was sharing these ideas and experiences and things that he's done. And then all of a sudden he decides to punish someone for doing exactly what he had been training his audience to do, which was to engage, to ask, to participate, and ultimately to learn. And I'm watching this, and this is when it clicked for me, because it wasn't about the guy's question, and it wasn't about the whole scenario of expert, and it actually wasn't even about resourcefulness. It fell on deaf ears because it was such a legitimately unsophisticated way to respond. It was his ego. this influencer's ego, plain and simple. Something changed, and in a moment's notice, all of a sudden, after having positioned himself as the expert and as a teacher, he just didn't want to be the teacher anymore and decided to make himself feel important by putting this guy on blast. And so I actually messaged him about it. I told him respectfully, I said, this person probably won't ever ask you a question again. And the reason why is because he created confusion about what is acceptable to ask. He punished the engagement, and then he called it leadership. As he was telling people to be resourceful, he was in his strong arrogance about, I can't believe this. This is, people don't this, and started talking down to people about their lack of resourcefulness. So this person that asked the question was genuinely ignorant about what he asked a question, not out of a level of ignorance that is wrong, but he just didn't know. And this influencer weaponized that ignorance against him. Instead of guiding him out of it, he weaponized him against it. That's not credibility or authority. That's ego, plain and simple. And ironically, I've seen this happen a lot. You'll get these really brash, influential, and it's not men or women, it's both. They'll do these AMAs and then something will annoy them or trigger them and they'll go off blast and start becoming assholes to the people that are asking questions to them in this way. And I don't understand it. Even though I do understand it, it doesn't make sense to me personally. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because here's the truth. You'll see it everywhere now that you start. Me bringing this up, you will start to see influencers, coaches, parents, politicians, religious leaders, anyone who confuses being impressive with being effective will end up doing this. And I think that's exactly what happened in the experience that I recounted, is that up to a point it was impressive. I can answer this. I did this. Look at this. And then it turned a corner, and he was asking him to be the person that posed the question was asking him to be effective now. And his ego was like, nah, go be resourceful. But, let me zoom out for a moment, which is beyond, one influencer or many or whatever on a power trip. It doesn't matter, because this ego thing isn't just an online issue. It's kind of a cultural epidemic, if you're honest. Let's look at the American discourse right now around Israel and Islam. Get heavy. You have two massive groups pointing at each other as extremists as justification for their own mistakes and their own righteousness. People saying the state of Israel controls everything. The Jews are in everything. AIPAC should register as a foreign agent. Why does every politician have an AIPAC representative? Why is there a history of all of these things showing this heavy, heavy influence? And there is a part of that discourse, especially on the conservative side of politics, that are over it. They're like, no, dude, America first, America only, bye. And those people then are saying that in the same breath, free Palestine, that Islam is a peaceful religion. And at the same time, completely ignoring the violent parts of its own history of that faith and the way they look at infidels and things. Like I said, people are shouting free Palestine while ignoring Hamas's atrocities, and people are defending Israel while ignoring the devastating cost of their response. And each side is convinced that the other side is bad. And if they're bad, that must mean I'm good. No. Once again, that's just ego. It's not clarity. It's not truth. It's not nuance. It's ego. And humans do this because it's easier to tribally identify with a group than it is to think independently, to have sovereign thought. It's easier to demonize the other side than it is to clean your own room. It's easier to point at someone else's sin than to face up to your own. And the crazy part is that in either scenario, no matter where you fall on either side of this discussion, and there's a third place in the middle that's like, you guys are both fucked, but we'll save that for a different conversation. The whole time in all of this, if you're objective, you will see truth staring you in the face, that there's good and bad in everything and everywhere. Every ideology has light and darkness. Every group has extremists and they have reasonable voices, and none of that inherently makes you good. Your enemy being wrong doesn't make you right. And your opponent being an extremist in whatever way that word is used doesn't make you wise. Someone else's darkness doesn't make you have light and full of light. But your ego doesn't want nuance. It wants certainty. Your ego wants to be right. It wants to feel safe in that righteousness. And the most dangerous part of it, when you get into these extreme parts of ego, is that it wants the illusion of superiority. Now, we can connect these two things because that's the same pattern as that influencer that I shared. And it's the same pattern in the political discourse. And that same pattern exists in relationships, in business, spirituality. When people are not internally grounded, that's when they default to their ego. That's when they feel the need to put on a good show, to save face. They default to the performance. They got to defend their identity instead of looking at the truth. Part of the reason why I'm so clear about this myself is because I have lived it many, many times where I was fully in my ego, unwilling to recognize how hypocritical I was in that egoic response. Here's one example. This one stung. I'll tell you a story from back when I was doing wholesale post-foreclosed real estate. In the late 2000s, after my mortgage career, I ran a company that was called Landmark Insiders. And we did a lot of business in that company. 3 years of, it was a lot. A lot. Millions of dollars worth of business. A lot. And about a year in, we had started making some really significant money. And we started expanding out our efforts to market because we knew we had a business model that if we could put more money into it, we could scale it. And also, we started to get the attention of some real players. And so there was demand for our services. And this was a real business. I was the CEO. We had a CFO. We had structure. We had affiliates. It was a whole thing. And I had created throughout this, because we had such a really quick rise. I mean, a year before the time that I'm talking about, like I was close to bankruptcy and losing my house. And then we close our first deal and my entire world changes. Zero to hero, like destitute to millions, literally. And that shift in me, I don't think I was really prepared for on an emotional level. And so I started to really feel like I was kind of a big deal, that I was important. I had value. And it proved that I had demand because there was people that really wanted access to what we were doing. And we had a pretty revolutionary idea of what we were conducting for our business. And so we were getting attention. But something in me changed where I got a really big head about it. And I started to act like people were lucky to get on my calendar. I had this kind of natural sort of pushback against having people get immediate access to me. Basically, I created a sense of scarcity when it came to people having access to me and what we were doing. I talked to my assistant. I'm only available these times. I acted really, really rigid. I was trying to manufacture this feeling of high status. And while though there was pieces of it that were real, we were busy. We could do what we said we could do. We transacted good business. None of that was because of me. It was because we had a good model and our timing was good. And I had a good team with me and my partner was good. I wasn't anything more or less special than anyone else. But I acted like I was rigid and I was high status. And the crazy part is I was insecure at that same time, but I tried to put on this face that I was confident. Now, when you pull back a little bit from that, I was in my ego. I wasn't in my presence. I had to perform this to live up to this level of result we were experiencing. All this money we were making and all this recognition. I had to now become this CEO of this company that was worth this attention. And I was scared of it. And so I just put on this mask that I'm a big deal and I created all this separation and it ended up having very real world consequences that really, really humbled me. Like I said, about a year into this, we're just cruising along and we get an opportunity to do some business with like a legitimate private equity fund. They wanted to come in and really help us do some things in a big, big way. And quite honestly, looking back, I see now that one deal alone could have changed the entire trajectory of even where I'm at today. I mean, it would have been real money. A lot of influence in that world. Like I said, it would have changed everything for me and my company. But in that whole process, I was showing up with this ego. And instead of showing these people, these players, like actual respect and building a partnership, I spent way more time posturing about how cool we were instead of looking for ways to collaborate with them. I remember we met one time in Vegas, and I remember joking about how lucky they were to be around us. And I kind of meant it. And so dumb. Well, fast forward a couple months and the deal ended up blowing up. Didn't work out. And it was pretty devastating, actually, because in my insecurity and lack of development, I was already making plans for the way that this was going to give us all this new money and all this new influence, and it was going to be this big thing. And I was excited for this. Again, thinking it was because of me and how cool I was and not because we actually just had a good business. And when it fell apart, it was really devastating to me. It was a massive blow to my ego. And so I had developed an actual friendship with one of the members of that team. And I reached out to him and I'm like, hey man, what happened? Like we were getting closer. There was contracts in place. We had our attorneys involved. Like and the guy goes, I don't know if you want to hear what I got to say to you, man. And I go, what? And he goes, well, in our meetings, as we were discussing this, you specifically came up and basically our guys thought that you think you're way more important than you actually are. I knew that deal would have set me up for life. And I was more concerned about making sure they knew I was cool. I can remember where I was when I had that call. I was in this beautiful home that we lived in South Jordan, Utah. Fully custom parade of homes. I have this amazing office. I'm looking out across the Wasatch Front, and I'm getting this phone call that's crushing me. Telling that little version inside of me, hey, you know how cool you thought you were? You're actually not. You haven't earned any of this yet. You just closed a couple deals and made some money. And in the preparation of this podcast, I had to go back and kind of think about some of that and relive that. And it taught me a lifelong lesson, actually. I can pinpoint a lot of the adjustment that I've had about the difference between confidence and ego back to that experience. Because I wasn't Kobe Bryant just because I was acting like Kobe Bryant. And that's where it's an interesting thing. It's like you have to stay in the right lane. Like it's okay to have extreme confidence about extreme results. If you're an amazing person when it comes to the results you've created for yourself, you are allowed to have a sense of confidence about that, encouraged, required even. But ego is when you don't have the results for that, but you are posturing as if you do. Ego will also make you defensive, and it's loud. But see, on the other side of that, your actual authority or credibility makes you effective, and it's quiet. It just is there. You can feel it. And another distinction is that your ego always wants you to be right, but your credibility and your authority wants you to be useful. Now, here's the truth for you behind all of this, behind my story, the politics stuff, the influencer. When you don't trust yourself internally, you will always compensate for it externally. You will posture, you will be judgmental, you will cling to your identity, you will resist any question to that identity, and you will weaponize the dumbest things, like information. And that's because that's what ego does. It has to protect your image. It has to keep it to where you look the way you want to look. And the cost of that experience is the truth. Because if you poke on ego, you will watch it fold to the truth. The truth is the one thing that you can put all of the downward pressure on. You can try to expose the truth and it will still sit there because it's real. It's verifiable. See, your credibility does the opposite. It protects your truth at the cost of your image. That's why that influencer snapped. That's why the current political discourse is insane and so polarized right now. That's why I lost that one deal in my real estate company. And it's also why so many people can't hold nuance. They can't disagree in small ways without feeling personally threatened. And where that comes from is, as humans, we need to feel internally anchored to our truth and to our ego. So I want to give you a framework that you can use today to break this in your own thing. As a part of this lab thing, we do experiments in here, as I've shared. And I think we've talked a lot about truth and experience today. I want you to ask yourself today, where in your life are you lacking connection? The answer to that question will show you where you are performing versus being truthful, where your ego is at play as opposed to the real you, the actual you that has any authority in anything in your life. A follow-up question to that would be, where are you being ineffective? And trying to look important instead of doing what's best? I want you to sit with those questions. Journal with them. Write them down. Push that rewind button and listen to them again. Because if you want anything that's real in your life, clarity, presence, authority, results, it starts by internally having order. You got to clean your own room. As Taylor Swift says, keep your side of the street clean. It starts with you telling the truth about who you are to yourself. You have to tell the truth to you about you. And that requires that you stop lying and you stop pretending to be something that you're not. As I wrap this up, I want to tell you something pretty important. because this could sound heavy and it could sound like it's a little bit distant. Like, I don't know, there's a lot here. How do I process this? If you go back and just answer those two questions, that'll help a lot. That'll give you some insight. But I want to remind you of some things as well, of what you don't need. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. And you don't have to be like righteous without sin to have clarity. You just need to keep your own integrity. You have to tell the truth to yourself about yourself. And then you have to tell the truth outwardly. Now, that's going to require some things of you. It's going to require that you do the work to handle the internal resistance that you feel to continually misrepresent and to act in ego. It requires that you stay grounded, which means you're going to have to do things that keep you grounded or return you to a place of grounding. Things like caring for your body, things like meditating, limiting chaos and noise in your life. One of the most important things that you have to remain doing, if you're not, you have to start doing this, is you got to be curious. You have to swap out judgment for curiosity. Instead of deciding how something is or what it means, be curious about why do you think that way? Why is that how I'm seeing this? And that will help you to stay connected with yourself. And ironically, the world around you too. See, that's what we do here. We don't lie. We tell the actual truth. The lab is a place where we're breaking patterns. I want every person that listens to this to tap into their actual authority, the thing in your life to which you know and you can speak to power about. That's a place of alignment. That's a place of presence. You know, before we wrap up, I'll leave you with this. Every example we talked about today, from the influencer meltdown to the geopolitical stuff to my real estate deal, it all points to this simple truth that your ego is the loudest when the person behind it is at its weakest. But your authority is quiet. And when you, as the person behind it, it's strongest. Real authority is not built from being right. It's built from being honest about what you know, about what you don't know, about the places you've been, about the things you react to, about the results you've had or didn't have. Honest about the parts of you that are more concerned with putting a performance out there so you're seen a certain way than you are about actually connecting with people. Most people never get this point. Most people think that telling the full and actual truth is like a death to your ego. And it kind of is, but not in a bad way. It's a death of the false identity that you've built to survive. That persona that you've used to stay safe is not you, and it cannot handle growth and expansion. That version of you that you've tried to use to impress other people and to posture and manipulate the angles of your own message and image, that guy's got to die. And when that guy dies, something new happens. Something that's cleaner, that's stronger, that's unmistakably you. When you stop performing and you start telling the truth, your presence will replace that posturing. When you stop defending yourself and you start listening, understanding then replaces that reactivity. And when you stop trying to look important, and when you start being actually useful, actual influence will replace that insecurity. And when that shift happens inside of you, everything in your life will change. You will communicate differently. You will make decisions differently. You will show up differently. You will attract different people. You will hold different boundaries. You will walk into rooms with a confidence that cannot be faked. And the best part is that you become someone that other people can trust. Someone other people can ask questions to and not worry about being humiliated. Someone who can recognize complexity without collapsing into some tribal bullshit. And you become someone who can understand nuance without losing yourself. That's what's real. So as we close out this episode, I want you to take this with you. Clean your side of the street. Tell the uncomfortable truth. Catch one moment where your ego tries to take the wheel and instead choose presence over that performance. Choose curiosity over defensiveness and judgment. Choose clarity over tribal membership. These are some experiments that you can make. And as you do, it will make you worth being followed. It will make you a better leader. It will make you worth somebody listening to you. It will make you trustworthy. And that's what I got for you. This is the lab, and this is the work, and this is the path to becoming the person that you know you're meant to be. I'm your host, Bryce Prescott, and I'll see you on the next one.